Welcome, everyone. This is Dave DeBow. It's my pleasure to introduce our special guest tonight, Mr. Scott Carson. Scott is a very experienced real estate entrepreneur with over 2 decades in real estate investing. The last 15 years, he's really laser focused in on notes. And what are notes? Well, for Scott, notes is basically buying distressed debt directly from the bank. He hasn't done a little bit of it. He hasn't done a lot of it. He's done a whole lot of it. In fact, he has purchased over 1 billion with a B. Geez, my goodness, that's amazing. $1 billion in distressed mortgages. So tonight, he's going to be walking us through the huge opportunity that's going to be coming up in debt. And as Scott says, how you too can participate, dive right into the sexy side of real estate. So Scott, welcome. Thanks very much for doing this.
Dave, thank you so much for bringing me to your audience and sharing this so much. I'm always excited to talk. I think this marks the 3rd or 4th year that we've done something together, and probably the 7th or 8th time we've spoken on each other's platform or been on other things. So as always, thank you so much. Really, truly appreciate it, Dave.
My
for all
pleasure,
that you do.
my friend. I had the pleasure of being on your show just a couple of days ago. It's always a blast. And Scott, I'm just gonna remind you, we've got a mixture of people here, but we do have quite a few Canadians on board. I know you've worked with a lot of folks outside of the States getting involved in investing in notes. So if you could just kind of give people the heads up on how this can work for folks who live outside of the States, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll dive into a lot of that stuff, but we have plenty of our students and plenty of investors who not only live outside of the United States and Canada or Mexico, but Europe and Australia, New Zealand, Russia, Croatia, Spain, Portugal. We've got students that are buying debt from in the United States from all across the world. We'll touch base on that in a little bit, but the mortgage markets are obviously a little bit different in the United States versus Canada. What I'm talking about, strategy you can do buying real estate here in the United States, where I'm located at, because there is a lot of opportunity. I mean, there's opportunity everywhere, but there's a lot more opportunity with what's going on and all the upheaval here. And I'll cover some of that stuff with statistics. And I encourage you to ask questions. My biggest goal here, when we wrap this thing up in the next 5 hours, I'm just joking, probably about the next 65, 70 minutes, is for you to walk away with a better understanding of what note investing is. Because most people, when they think about notes, they think about owner financing a property, buying on terms. And that's one facet, one niche within a niche of what note investing is. What I focus on, is, as Dave mentioned a little bit, is I've been a little bit different. I'm like the Big Short when it comes to investing in notes. And like I said, for the last 15 years, I've bought thousands of residential commercial mortgages direct from the banks where the borrower or the homeowner was not paying anywhere from like 6 months to 6 years. And so our focus is buying that debt, becoming the bank, and then we make our profit by working out with the borrowers. But before we dive into that, I just want to kind of go through a little bit. So honored to be here. I'm known across the country as the note guy. Like I said, I've been an active investor since 2007. Active investor since 2002, note investor since 2007. The Wall Street Journal has called me the love connection of ugly paper. I've been featured in all sorts of periodicals, Inc. magazine, Wall Street Journal, Real Estate Investor magazine rated me as the number 4 entrepreneur to watch here in the next couple of years. I have a podcast that I host on a pretty regular basis, over 700 plus episodes, called The Note Closer Show. Feel free to check it out. It's a great show with me teaching half the time and then me bringing guests on that help people in their real estate career and their note investing career. I am very proud of the fact that me and my students have helped thousands of not only investors, but homeowners in one of their most troubled times, dealing with potentially the loss of their house. If they can't pay their mortgage, they're worried about foreclosure. So we're really excited about that. We've been able to help that. Our class is the number 1 investor recommended training when it comes to actually investing in notes. And if you'd like, take down my number and I'll be glad to text you my slides to tonight's presentation. And then also my book that we've sold thousands of copies to, is How to Buy Real Estate for 40% Off, and how to break into the secret world of note investing. So the first question I always like to ask is why. You got to have a why for either what you're doing. Maybe it's your family, maybe it's to retire yourself, maybe it's to leave your job, maybe you're tired of being locked down. God knows we all have experienced a lot of stress in the last couple of years, but you're here for a specific reason. A lot of times to get a better return on investment, you're looking for opportunities, but also a better return on your time. And I thank you so much for being here. I promise to make this, like I said, your time to be valuable tonight, that you'll walk away more educated, more knowledgeable, and hopefully have another tool that you could technically put in your tool belt, or may want to focus on 100%. But if you look at all the news that's going on out there, we see inflation at all times, gas prices, mortgage rates continue to climb. It's not the cheap money aspect of what it's been. Gas is over $5 a gallon, starting to come down a little bit here in the United States there. And you start looking across the United States where I live, and you start seeing that the inflation rate, they say, is 7.5 in this chart. It was up to 9.1. In some cases, they say it's actually somewhere between 17 and 20%, depending on where you live. Now, that's crazy. You know what that means to me? If you've got $1 and you're not doing something with that dollar's not worth 90 cents or maybe 85 cents. All right. You got to be doing something to take advantage of the opportunities. And whether it's a bear market or a bull market, there are always opportunities, especially right now when we have a down market. Much more opportunity than in an up market, because you just got to get a little creative. And I'm extremely excited about what the future holds for us over the next 24, 36, 48 months, especially with what I do, because when times start getting bad, we see a wave of distressed debt, distressed properties. And what I do, we see deals 6 to 12 months ahead of most of the major investors. Most of the competition will never see the deals that we do because we are so direct to the bank, and then we work things out. So, and like I said, if you don't think there's going to be an increase in defaults, there is. All right. Increased interest rates, food, gas, and inflation will lead to more mortgage defaults. I know that some people want to fight me on that, but that is the case. That is common sense. We're already seeing this take place. The recent numbers from the first 6 months of this year, the foreclosure numbers match right at what it was prior to COVID, and that number is continuing to climb. We've seen default rates from banks, not only what they have in default right now, but what's coming down the pipeline, start to skyrocket. The pipe pipers got to be paid at some point, and they can't keep kicking the can down the road. And you can see here, this is mortgage delinquency rates, going back to 2006. Currently, mortgage default rates are a little bit less than 4.1%, somewhere about 3.5% of all mortgages here in the United States are in default. Now, people say, well, that doesn't seem like a lot. Yeah, that's a lower rate than what it was back at the start of COVID at 8.22. But that still means millions of homes are in default. Here in the United States, we have somewhere around 81 plus million homes with mortgages on it some sort. If you take 3.5% of that 80 to 90 million homes, that's still 3 to 4 million homes that are facing default all across the United States. If you like commercial default rates are also starting to skyrocket in 11. Now, there are some that are doing very well, like industrial, self-storage, multifamily are still at or below 2% default rates, but the lodging, hotel, motels, retail, restaurants, which is not shown on here, that kind of falls on the other side, but there's a lot of other stuff out there that's really in default. Vacancy rates are starting to skyrocket all across different parts of the United States here in a variety of facets. You got to look at what's going on, and I'm going to throw some numbers at you right now. And you may not know this, if anything, you may want to write this down. Did you know currently, like I said, there are 4 to 5 million homes in default? I talked about that a second ago. That's just one facet of what we see on the sexy side of real estate by buying the debt. We not only see residential, but we also see commercial. Do we have anybody on here that's watching? If you would do me a favor, raise your hand or say, yay, if you're looking for more deals, whether it's residential, commercial. If you want to say yay, resi, yay, commercial, do the chat roll for me so I can kind of see who's interested in what there tonight. But 4 to 5 million, that's just right now. That number will increase. Now, if we compare this back 15 years ago at the peak in 2010, we had 15 million homes underwater in default. Now, we're roughly at about a third there. Do I think we'll get there? Probably not, but I believe truly that we'll get at least to 8 to 10 million homes in default. Now, yes, people are always needing homes in various. Most of these homes aren't going to be in Austin, Texas, San Francisco, San Diego. They're going to be in the salt of the earth area, the rust belts, the outlying of the major cities where people are struggling the most to make ends meet, especially with everything going on, and survive. And so that's the residential numbers. Anybody here interested in commercial? Some specific statistics on commercial debt out there. Right now, as it sits, if you like apartments, there are 3,600 plus distressed apartments out there with basically 100 plus units there for you. Now, I know, Dave, you invest passively in apartments. we're starting to see some apartment notes. If you want to take it a little bit higher, I'm sorry, with less than 100 was basically there's 1,900 plus distressed apartments with basically 100 plus units. All right. And you would think, well, apartments, people are paying on time. That's great, but it's not always the case. All right. Distress means a couple things besides people just not paying their mortgage. All right. Now, if you want to take it a different level, maybe maybe apartments aren't known, but like self-storage, there are 1,300 plus distressed self-storage facilities out there. If you like hotels, motels, Holiday Inn, there's 7,300 plus distressed hotel motels. And for those of you that are maybe looking for more affordability, looking for RV parks, mobile home parks, that's really a fractured, I guess you could say, asset class. A lot of mom and pop investors out there, but it tells you there's still opportunity there when there are currently 200 plus major mobile home and RV parks that are distressed, where people are not paying their mortgage, they're behind, and the servicers are putting them on a watch list with the bank, say, hey, you really need to watch this asset class. You need to watch this asset, the borrowers on this or this deal, because it's distressed. Now, what does that mean when I talk about distressed? Well, the first thing is it usually means that the borrowers have not made a mortgage payment for at least 90 days or greater. Okay, that's usually the first sign. They're in default. The servicer has started the foreclosure process, depending on where they're located. And here in the United States, we have two foreclosure processes. We have a non-judicial, which is in about half the states, which is a faster foreclosure process. And then you have a judicial foreclosure process, which usually takes a year or longer, up to 2 to 3 years in New York and New Jersey. But the service is like, no, we have a longer foreclosure process. We've got to get this process started. So we're starting to see an increase in filings for that. The debt service coverage ratio is starting to drop below 1.25%, especially in the commercial deals where the rent's not going on. People have been vacant. People are not renewing their leases or not paying the landlords. And these three things actually start to really affect the note, the mortgage, the underlying value of that mortgage. Okay, not the property. And we all know, yes, that rent rates and cap rates, stuff like that affects the value of the property. But when you start having people not pay their mortgage, the value of that paper to the lender starts to decrease roughly 5 to 10% each month that the borrower does not pay, is not on time. This is why if you're more than 7 days late in your mortgage, you're going to start getting phone calls and certified letters, and people are going to be knocking on your doors trying to track you down because the banks do not want the paper, the mortgage in default. They try to work with them. And this is why so many of the banks were excited. I hate to say this, but many banks reported record earnings the last 2 years because they didn't have to foreclose. They were getting modifications and other things taking place, or just being able to kick the can down the road with a forbearance agreement. Oh, you don't have to pay. You can wait. You haven't paid in 2 years. We'll give you another 6 months. Okay. Well, now those things are starting to change, and we're starting to see an increase in the bank starting that foreclosure process. Now, it's one of the biggest things too. Banks start the foreclosure process, but banks don't want to own real estate. The bank's motivation to offset this loss or pending loss in their books highly increases, and they're much more interested in selling the debt off, especially on the big portfolios, 50 million plus. They're going to sell the debt off to somebody else, let them work with it, and take that money that they got and go in and lend it out. Or they're going to start that process of evaluating their portfolio, because especially here in the United States, on a residential loan, if a $100,000 loan is in default and stops paying, it really costs that lender, that bank, 10 times that mortgage in fees that they can collect and profits out there. So banks are very motivated to sell their non-performing debt. Now, the performing debt, they will still sell from time to time, but most of the bigger discounts that we see is coming from when borrower has not paid on time. And we'll talk about how we find those deals. So now the question I always ask is a no-brainer. How would you like banks and lenders out there who've got lists of defaulted mortgage to actually email you their problem children on a monthly, quarterly basis? Can I get a raise of hands from a few folks out there who would love to get these lists sent to you? Dave raises a hand. Thank you, sir. That's what we want, right, guys and gals? If you're an active real estate investor, Samir, thank you for raising your hand. Everybody else out there, we are all looking for deals, right? And well, that's the beautiful thing about the note business we get into, is that we're not having to target distressed borrowers with postcards and yellow letters and bandit signs and door knocking. I mean, I've been shot at twice in the past when I've been door knocking before. It's not something that I want to do. Okay. Careful. I think I get shot at there again. But anyway, the beautiful thing about what we do is when we make connection with the right department of the bank, this becomes a lead source for us every month, every quarter for deals to come to us on their portfolio. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And to give you a bit of an idea, they send out spreadsheets to us on a regular basis. This is actually all these dots on this one part of the map from Texas to Florida and up to North Carolina, Tennessee. That's just 250 assets off of a tape of 950 that I received from a bank this week. Now, they also had other stuff here up in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. You can see other assets. You know, that's the great thing. I'll see deals from banks that may be one asset, or it may be thousands of deals all across the country to take a look at. Now, the beautiful thing is that we're all, as investors, trying to find deals faster than our competition, right? That's why we're doing all the things that we can do to drive people into us. But what I love is these deals, these lists that I'm sent. I'm seeing these deals 6 to 12 months ahead of other investors. How many would you love to be at the front of the line when stuff goes into default, where you get it direct from the source, no joker brokers, no daisy chains, no waiting for potentially the deal filtered through as an REO? We see stuff 6 to 12 months ahead of the competition out there, and we get it at bigger discounts as well too. And that's a big thing. With us buying the debt, we're seeing bigger discounts, which obviously that leads to bigger profits than your other real estate investors. Most fix and flippers, most REOs, most landlords, they're paying above 80, 85, 90 cents on the dollar in some cases. I don't do that. We don't do that. We don't do skinny deals. We're not looking to repair properties. We're looking at the as-is value of the properties and taking our discount off of that based on the idea that the borrower is non-performing, and either we can modify that borrower to get back on track, or B, take the property back or have the borrower sign the property over to us in some sort of fashion. All right. Now, yes, we can still foreclose because we are the bank when we buy that debt. But our biggest and number one goal is not to ever own the real estate. We're in the lending. We're in the note business. Banks don't own real estate. They don't want to own real estate. They don't want to be in the rental business. They don't want to be in the fix and flip. They don't want to be in the Airbnb. They want to be in the paper business where they're getting paid every month by the 5th or the 15th of the month. The cash flow aspect of things. And that's what we're looking to do as well. And we've been doing it for years. And I'll give you an example. We see deals of all types. This is a deal in the north part of the United States, up in Detroit, Michigan. It's a great little deal. I actually took this photo. Actually, was up in Michigan and drove by a portfolio of 50 notes that I bought or was looking at buying. I owned half of them. I was looking at another 25. And this one, the borrower, property's worth 60. We bought the note for 9. The beautiful thing on this one is that they're paying their mortgage payment roughly is a shorter mortgage. We were able to modify them because they hadn't paid in over a year when we bought it. They wanted to stay in their house, and we were able to modify it. So we're getting over $500 a month cash flow on this one asset. That's a pretty good ROI for a $9,000 initial investment. And the great thing is we didn't talk to the borrower. We had a third party that handled the heavy lifting. If the borrower had not played ball with us, we would have gone the legal route and foreclosed and made a chunk and change by foreclosing and either taking the asset to auction or selling it off on the MLS, or taking it back and keeping it as a rental if you want to do that. We have some folks that do that. Now, that may not excite you. Maybe you like bigger checks. Well, here's another deal that we bought just over a year ago. This is in Cutler Bay. It's a beautiful big house, 5-bedroom, 4-bath, like 4,500 square foot house. The guy, the borrower on this owes 1.2, 1.3 million on this. House as it sits is just under $1 million. When we bought the note, it was worth 800, but in the last 13 months, it's appreciated about 100 grand. It's taken a little while for us to foreclose, but we picked this note up at like 441,000, and we plan on selling at the auction here in the next 2 months at roughly 900, 950. So it's going to be a nice payday of a nice 6-figure profit margin. And we see deals all in between there, from the $500 a month to big checks to like nicer assets. Because I hate to say it, it's just not the poor, the lower class, the middle class. It is also the upper class that are struggling to pay their mortgage. And I do these deals all the time. I've shown you a couple other assets. This is a deal, just talking to Dave a second ago. We just closed on this asset in Indiana. It's a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath with about 95,000 in good condition. The borrower passed away. The state doesn't want anything to do with it. They owe 103. We picked this note up on this house for $47,000. We'll take it to the foreclosure auction and either sell it at 80 to 85. If not, we'll take it back, put a little bit of work. It only needs about $2,000 in cleanup costs and sell it as an REO. Or if I want to, I can keep it as a rental for $1,000 a month on it. So just closed on this one today. I'm constantly buying and selling notes. We're always looking at assets. We get tapes sent to us all the time, almost every day. We have assets to look at. All of us, from leveraging smart marketing, online, LinkedIn, and different websites that we're able to pull lists from of bankers and people in the banks that make the decision. So here's a little bit of more basic information when it comes to investing in notes. Literally, we're all already in the note game, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got a mortgage, a credit card, car loan, student loan debt, you owe Dave $500 for the bar tab, you're in the note game. You're just on the wrong side of the payment stream where money's outgoing, and you want to reverse the flow of that where money's incoming. And that's what we're doing. We're buying debt, working with borrowers to get money to come in on a cash flow basis on a monthly basis. When you buy the note, the mortgage, you don't own the property yet, but you do become the bank. Now, we only focus on buying first lien positions, first lien mortgages. Our average deal isn't 30 years. It's somewhere between 12 and 36 months most of the time. Sometimes it's faster. Got a deal in here in Texas. We'll be in and out of it in less than 90 days. But the one in Florida, that's going to take us basically 15 months once we're from start to finish. But the beautiful thing is you become the bank. You have all the rights that the bank does in enforcing the collection of your debt, okay? Like I said, you don't own the property, but being in the first lien position, you do control that asset class. And yes, banks and lenders will sell you notes. There's folks out there will tell you, you're too small. You ain't got enough money. Banks aren't going to deal with you. Well, that's a bunch of BS, because when I got started investing in notes and started calling banks back in 2007, I didn't have hardly any money. All right. I hadn't closed on a single note deal in 2007, but I reached out. I was able to identify deals, talk to the banks. Sounded like I knew what the hell I was talking about, to have lists sent to me that I could cherry pick. And now fast forward later, 15 years, over $1 billion in distressed debt bought, over thousands of deals closed. So yes, banks will sell you notes if you just know what to say and you pass the smell test. Now, pricing on those deals will vary anywhere from 25 to 75% of the unpaid principal balance, depending on the market, where it's located, and then the asset class and the actual asset itself. We see a huge discount most of the time compared to others. All right. And here's the thing: you don't have to be an expert in foreclosure. You don't have to be an expert in negotiating with these borrowers or what to do. You don't want to be. Trust me. You need to know what you can do, but we rely on the heavy lifting with third-party servicers and attorneys and other vendors who do all the heavy lifting for us. Did I fly to Indiana to look at that asset? No, I did not. Did I fly to Miami to look at that asset? No. Did I fly down to Cutler Bay to show up for the foreclosure auction? No. We have vendors that do all of this for us, so I can stay here in the comfort of my own home. Comfort might be a stretch because it is hot outside, but you get what I'm saying. I've closed deals anywhere from here in Austin, Texas, to South Florida, and when I was on a cruise in the middle of the Mediterranean or in Europe, I've closed deals in the United States because we do rely so much on our vendors, and a lot of stuff is handled via spreadsheet and emails and back and forth. Now, what am I going to cover the rest of the time? We'll show you how we find these deals from banks and hedge funds. If you're interested in hanging around, pretty simple. We'll show you how we fund these deals. Very, very. We won't talk much about that because you're in good hands. If you're in part of Dave's crew here, Dave shows you how to fund deals, and we'll just talk briefly on some of the things that we do with that. Third thing, we'll talk about the different exit strategies and how we make money in either flipping the note or keeping it. And then we'll also talk about how and why we focus on rehabbing the borrower, not the property. And then we'll also talk about how some of the different win-win-win scenarios that we have, that we create for us, the banks, and the borrowers out there. But when it comes to finding deals, it's actually easier to find deals than a lot of folks. Most folks are sending out thousands of dollars in postcards and yellow letters, door knocking. You're trying to do a lot of things, cold calling, expired listings. We don't do any of that. And one of the great things is I've bought debt in a variety of different asset classes from doing a lot of the same things. I bought it on single family homes, apartments, self-storage, medical office, long-term care, mobile home parks. I once bought a motel, an 8-unit motel in North Carolina that turned out to be a working brothel, which was kind of funny. It's a story for another time. I bought automobile debt. I've done deals anywhere from $7 to $7 million. And talking about auto debt, yeah, that's actually a picture of a truck where I bought the note direct from the credit union at a huge discount, repoed the truck, drove the truck around the country for 3.5 years. And when I traded it in on my new truck, I got basically exactly what I paid for the note. So basically got a note on a truck for free. in a lot of cases. But there's so many interesting stories. I could go on and on about some of the different case studies we have, but I'll save that for another time for you. All right. Where do we find these deals? Now, you're not going to walk into your local bank and say, hey, this guy, Scott Carson, told me I could buy some notes. And they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Okay. You do go to banks, but there's be some specific departments that you reach out to. And we'll discuss those. But banks are one places that we find notes. Hedge funds, servicing companies that are servicing a debt on behalf of others will often have stuff available for sale. We'll look at auction websites. There are some major auction websites. There's not really an MLS, a multiple listing service for notes out there, but there are different auction websites. We'll deal with mortgage bankers a lot of times who are originating notes or had to buy back a note because the borrower was in default. We'll deal with real estate investment trusts as well, who have bought big portfolios of mortgages, and private sellers like myself. We buy in about 30 different states across the country. And, like I said, there's a lot of opportunity because our market isn't just like Austin, Texas, or my backyard. It's literally 30 different states. All right. I don't invest in some states because long foreclosures, New York, New Jersey. There's a few others I don't buy in just because they seem to be way overpriced, like California, Oregon, Washington State. No offense to my folks on the West Coast, but what you could pay for one note in California, buy a block in Kansas City. All right. But why would a bank sell a note? Well, they would rather get the cash now if they could sell that debt at 50 cents of the dollar so they can go out and lend that money out 10 to 12 times versus waiting on a long foreclosure process. It could take them 12 to 24 months. Okay. They like to move off the bad debt that's off their books that are killing their numbers, and they're actually getting penalized. And here in the United States, the bank has a larger percentage of distressed debt on their books. They have to hold back a specific amount of reserves to offset those losses. It can actually affect them in a derogatory fashion when their percentages go up beyond a specific number. As I said before, banks are in the loan making business, not the real estate business. Okay. A foreclosure to them is a non-performing asset class. They don't want to own foreclosures. It's a truly non-performing asset. It costs them 3 to 4 times what it would cost you and me to go and rehab a property. Now, they're so willing a lot of times to do the paper side on commercial debt. A lot of times they might actually even carry you, give you the financing to buy the note from them, and where they carry the paper costs if you are either the buyer or you've got an operations now. This is usually going to be on $1 million+ balance on a loan, mostly commercial, but we've seen this happen. We've used this in our favor sometimes. And if you don't think there's a lot of commercial debt out there, there is. It is really the biggest asset class, I say, when it comes to notes. That is really what we're going to see a lot of opportunities. That small balance commercial debt where it's $5 million in value or below, that's really been clogging up the banks. Because if you look at the numbers and how this recession really has been started compared to what happened 15, 20 years ago, Wall Street financed most of the commercial debt. Well, this time around, the last 13 years, smaller banks have financed 60 to 65% of the commercial loans out there. And they're the ones that are being hit the hardest on their portfolios with this stuff. Okay, so it leaves the opposite. And like Wall Street, they like bigger deals, $5 million+. They're not going to waste their time with a one-off note. But that means there are plenty of opportunities for investors like you and me who can step in, buy 1, 2, 10, 20 of notes. You don't have to have $5 million to buy a portfolio notes. You can still buy a lot of one-off notes. Like that one note, all those notes I talked about, well, except the Michigan was bought in a portfolio, but the Miami one was bought individually. The Anderson, Indiana one that we just bought was a list of 75 that I got that I able to cherry pick that deal out of it. Okay. Now, banks do file a quarterly report to the United States. They have to disclose how much of their portfolio, whether it's a percentage of their portfolio is dollars, cash, loan amount, they've got to disclose how much of that is in 90-day defaults, plus what is also 30 to 89-day lates. Now that 30 to 89-day lates, that's the stuff that's basically coming down the pipeline next quarter in default. Now they can work some of that stuff out, but it gives you a good idea. Oh, hey, this is what they have this month. Is another wave coming in the next quarter? And that's one of the things that we track. Okay. They've got to disclose this. Oh, they're not going to have FDIC insurance on it. They also do the same thing with the commercial default rates. Their multifamily defaults, they disclose that. And here's a great thing. There is a kind of, I won't say a watchdog, but a third-party company called Bauer Financial out there that actually tracks this stuff. Instead of you going on to the FDIC.gov website trying to read all these quarterly reports, sorry, I just fell asleep. You can go to Bauer Financial and actually buy a report from the quarterly and say, hey, send me a spreadsheet with all the numbers on these banks. And we target banks that have at least 5 branches or more. And it's over 1,500 banking institutions across the country that we get to list on a quarterly basis. You can tell, okay, target this bank this quarter, target this bank next quarter. Okay. And when we reach out to banks, we're not calling the customer service line. We're not calling loss mitigation. We're calling the special assets department to speak to the special assets manager. And we'll track down the person either using LinkedIn or finding an email form and ultimately finding a phone number. Now, we usually will reach out to them on LinkedIn first, or we can pull a lot of numbers from some different marketing websites that we dive into. But it's much easier for us to send an email out once a month to 4,000, 5,000 asset managers. And then we'll get people that respond to us every month off that list say, hey, I got something that you need to take a look at. Okay. Now, to give you a bit of an idea of the last 15 years, some of the things that are available out there. We bought 220 single family homes worth $10 million for $1.1 million. Years ago. We bought a 300-unit apartment complex in Indianapolis from Banco Popular, bank that's now out of business. A 72-unit hotel that was converted into an apartment complex in Dallas from Capital One Bank. What's in your wallet? Okay. We bought a 75-unit in Laredo from Wells Fargo Multifamily, 16-unit in Los Angeles from Bank of America. Yes, we call Bank of America the evil empire. We bought 250 contract for deeds from Harbor Portfolio at 33% of the debt that was owed, which equated to roughly 25% of fair market value. And all of them, actually, sorry, 75% of them were occupied. The other 25% were not. But the ones that were occupied, we got 70% of those back on track with one phone call. U.S. Century Bank, which is a bank down in Tampa, Florida. We bought several assets from them, a 20, a 21, a 24-unit apartment complex out there by buying the debt at a big discount and then working with the borrowers to get it back on track. We bought a 150-unit in Homestead from Oceans Bank. And then we bought a 24-unit here in Austin, Texas from First State Bank, where the bank actually partnered with us to do the rehab and the condo conversion. My first ever deal I bought was an 8-unit in San Diego from Greenport Mortgage back in the day. And we bought it for less than 50 cents on the dollar. Now, who are you looking to talk to get these kind of deals sent to you? If you go to LinkedIn right now, and if you do anything, you can take a picture of this slide, or I'll just send you the slides at the end if you hang around. And these are the 4 departments you look for. If you go to LinkedIn and do a search for special assets manager, which is what I've already mentioned, you'll see over 273,000 potential connections out there, people that have that job title currently. Now, that's for the bigger institutions. You're not going to buy notes from usually residential notes or one-off notes from Bank of America, Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo. You can do on some commercial stuff, but the residential stuff, they're not going to sell you one-offs. Okay. But that doesn't mean there aren't over 4,000 other banks out there besides those top 4 or 5. Now, if you go to a medium-sized bank, they'll often have a person in charge of what's called their secondary marketing manager. Secondary marketing, there's over 1 million plus connections on LinkedIn if you do that jobs title search as well. If you look at smaller banks, we're talking your local, small, statewide banks. You look for chief credit risk officers, you'll see 124,000 plus connections on there potentially. Then the REITs and the insurance, they have their note traders being called whole loan sales or home loan traders, and you'll see 39,000 connections. Of people out there to connect with. This is why we say, yes, we are a niche, but there's plenty of opportunity if you're willing to reach out. If you're willing to do a little bit of marketing and reaching out to these asset managers for their potential deals. Now, are they going to have something every month? No, but they will have something every at least once a year. Now, some of them have monthly. Some will have it just once a year. The smaller the bank, the less likely you are to have something except once a year. But they will sell debt. Sometimes you just got to follow up with them. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves in, showing you how to actually talk to these people. What do you say? What don't you say? I mean, I've bought from so many institutions. This is just a snapshot of just a few of the ones that we've bought from over the past couple of years. And, you know, like I said, every bank is a distressed debt. It's a matter of just getting a hold of the right person or the right department to be able to do that. And here's the thing. I'm not targeting these banks to buy their real estate. I'm borrowing it to buy their debt because our number one goal when we buy this debt is to reinstate or modify the borrower for cash flow, get them back on track. You know, rehab the borrower doesn't mean we're sending them to the Betty Ford Clinic. It means we're listening to them and figuring, okay, what happened to you? What's the issue? Can you start paying on time again? What payment can you make? Can you bring some extra to the table? Well, you can't pay. Do you have somebody who wants to take over the payments? Do you want to walk away? Can we sell the house? Do a short sale? But our number one goal is to always reinstate and modify the borrower for cash flow, because that's our biggest bang for the buck. Our number two goal is then if they can't pay in some sort of modified, then to either do a property liquidation, or give them, cash for keys, offer a deed in lieu, list the property for a short sale, do a reduced payoff. If they've got some equity, sell the asset off for the most part. That's our number two goal. And our last goal, our number three goal, which still happens about 25% of the time, is to foreclose on the borrower. Sometimes you just can't help people. Sometimes they just don't want to be helped. I mean, there's been deals that we bought, we thought we'd have to foreclose, the borrower came to the table, can modify, we were happy. Other deals we thought we would modify, and the borrower just ducked his head and decided to say, I don't want to talk. Well, we don't run a charity here. We are in the business, and we've got to make returns. And so one of the things is that then we'll do the foreclosure process. And like I said, that'll vary from anywhere from 30 days, like here in Texas and Georgia, all the way to like 3 years if you're in New York State. Okay. Now, funding. How do you fund a note deal? Well, you're not going to go to a bank and get a note to, get a loan to buy a note. Okay. We fund our note deals a couple of ways. If it's a commercial deal, oftentimes we'll ask the bank, hey, will you finance this? Will you move it? If we're taking this asset over, will you take the note from the bad side of the paper and turn it to the positive side of the bank? And you'll see that happen. Most of the time we're using OPM, other people's money, our financial friends network out there, to fund deals. Okay. In some cases, there are some syndications. You can, if it's like a bigger one-off asset, we'll use syndications. We're putting our own fund together right now. And there are some funds that will finance your purchase a little bit because they understand the note business. Now, what we like to use, retirement accounts, self-directed IRAs, traditional IRAs, savings accounts. You can use a self-directed 401k, a solo 401k. A lot of things here in the United States are available to investors here. And we can use people's savings. We can use people's checking accounts if they've got savings and stuff like that they want to put to work. And like I said, it's not a 30-year investment. It's usually about a 12 to 36-month time frame to get the borrower back on track, make payments on time, and then sell the asset off. But how do we find investors? You've got one of the best guides here teaching you how to have people chasing you. But if you don't know how to, we reach out to REI clubs, meetup groups. We really love working with self-directed IRA investors here in the United States. You can literally jump on the county records in about 90% of the country and literally pull up a list of people who have used their IRA to purchase a property or lend money out of their IRA. Okay. And most of the counties are free to do this with. So it's a great way for it to do it, because these are people that A, have pulled the trigger, and B, have money, but C, they're looking for deals. And with self-directed IRAs, they can't be the active participant in going out and handling the service and stuff like that. They've got to be in a passive aspect. So we chase different IRA investors at the county appraisals, and then also the county clerk for those that have lent money out of their IRA. So if you learn anything, that's a nugget for all of you in raising capital and targeting those IRA investors. That's the only direct mail that we'll do, is actually send out a postcard or letter to IRA investors with, hey, we just closed on a deal. Hey, we're working on another deal. And like I said, and Dave will be the one to tell you, you don't need 1,000 investors. You just need a few that you can wow and pass that smell test and impress that want to fund you. Now, when it comes to flipping, how do you make money? I don't know. Where's the profit margin? Where's that ROI come into? Well, when it comes to buying debt, you're going to be reviewing a couple things. We're reviewing the borrower, the property, and the loan during our due diligence period. And then we'll usually have somewhere between 7 and 30 days to perform due diligence. We're going to pull title. We're going to send somebody out to look at the property. And then we're going to look at the servicing notes, where has the borrower been responsive and being nice, or they've been a pain in the ass, or they've not been responsive at all. So the great thing is we've got some time to do due diligence. The asset I just closed on in Anderson, we had over a month for due diligence on one asset. When we buy a portfolio, we'll often sometimes have 90 days for due diligence. You're buying a commercial asset, you may have 90 days to 6 months in a lot of cases for due diligence on stuff like that. So that's the beautiful thing on this stuff, is it gives you some time to market the deal, but then also figure out what the best exit strategy for you. And with notes, there's roughly 12 different exit strategies, 10 on the residential, 12 on the commercial side. Those that have wholesale deals, you can wholesale notes just like you wholesale a piece of property. Get the note under contract, make sure you know what the heck you're looking at, and then flip that paper to somebody else like me for a profit. That's a dollar sign. Our biggest goal is to, when we buy a note, is to reach out to the borrower, say, hey, can you start paying the loan? Can you start reinstating the loan? We'll forgive you some debt, or we'll take your 12 or 24 months and put it to the face amount of the loan, cash flow. If they can't pay the existing loan, then we'll do some sort of trial payment plan or modify the loan. If that doesn't work, then you gotta realize we're buying the debt at a big discount. Okay. So if they owe $100,000 on a $100,000 asset, and we bought that debt at 50 grand, and their interest rate was at 6%. Well, we bought it at 50 cents on the dollar. The borrower still owes the full amount owed. But if we get it back on track, now it's that 6% loan is a 12% ROI to us. If we can get the borrower to pay some extra, it starts boosting up our IRIs. Okay. If we hold that note for 12 months and then sell it off in one of our later strategies, we could sell it at 85, 90 cents on the dollar, make a chunk of change in the back end. Okay. We can offer the borrower to listen. If you owe 100 on this, the house is only worth 80. Why don't you? Offer you if you can bring 70 to the table. We'll let you do a reduced payoff, a cash payoff. I mean, if you don't have somebody that can take over payments and do it at loan assumption, that's the next route we'll go. You don't have that money. Okay, let's just do a short sale. Let's list it on the MLS and see if we can get a short sale. So you got to remember, if we're at 50,000 and the house is at worth at least 75, 80, and we agree to that, we're still taking a little bit of loss in the back end paper-wise, but we're still making profits. That doesn't work. We can offer cash to the borrowers or consent to judgment for them to walk. If it's reperforming and we get the borrower back on track for 12 months, we'll sell it off as a reperforming note. Now, we bought it at 50. We can sell it now at 80, 85, 90 cents on the dollar. Back to Wall Street, back to other investors out there as well. That doesn't work. We can always foreclose and sell the asset off at the foreclosure auction or take it back as an REO. If the borrower is a bit of a pain in the ass and we bought the note and we want to go in a different strategy and dragging out, we know which way the exit strategy is going to go. We can always sell that note off to somebody else. On the commercial side, you can take over the asset if it's in DK and start collecting on receivership. And then also, the beautiful thing about commercial debt is most of the commercial loans have the right to start collecting payments. It's literally in the clause. The minute you start going late, we as the bank have the right to start collecting payments during the foreclosure process. So lots of different ways. You're not going to learn everything about how the exit strategy works here tonight, but that's why we teach what we do, because there's a lot of different moving parts to it, but it's a very profitable part of what we do. Now, how do we create win-wins out there? We mentioned this beforehand. We create win-wins for the property owner because we are able to offer them a variety of exit strategies. If they don't want to stay, great, sign the property over to us. We're not going to file a judgment against them unless they don't play ball with us. We're not going to report on they're late to the mortgage companies if they're working with us. So they could technically, in 24 months, if they do what they need to do, go out and get a new mortgage and go buy a new house. We're not going to report a foreclosure on their credit if they work with us. Now, we all know a foreclosure affects a person's credit by 7 years, almost as a death sentence for them to be able to buy a new house. We don't report that. If we do a deed and let them go from there, like I said, we will oftentimes give borrowers cash for keys so they can walk, pay their deposit, or help them move. Do a lot of things. We paid a borrower $1,000 for them to sign the property over to us because they were out of state. They didn't want the property anymore. And we said, okay, can you at least meet our attorney? We'll give you $1,000 to show up and sign. He's like, heck yeah. What was really common back in 15 years ago was banks would forgive debt, but they would come back to the borrower and say, hey, we want you to sign a non-secured promissory note, make payments to us for what we're forgiving. We don't do that crap, okay? Most borrowers that are in trouble, they have their heads in the sand. They're not answering the phone. They're not checking their mail. They're just stressed. Sometimes you just got to walk up to them and give them a bit of a kick in the butt and say, listen, hey, buddy, we're not Wells Fargo. We're not Bank of America. You have a new opportunity to stay if you want to. We're willing to work with you. We're willing to keep you in the house if you want to. But if you're not going to play ball with us, there's not much else we can do. Now, how do we create wins for the banks? Who cares about the banks, right? They made this mess. Just joking, but banks, you're able to help get rid of that bad debt that's killing their books. We're able to settle in a fraction of time, in 30 days versus it taking them 3 years or 2 years in some cases. They do hate foreclosures. They hate REOs because it's not bringing any money to them. Many times banks, especially in commercial debt, if the borrower's not paying, they'll do a pretend and extend mentality. Oh, you haven't paid in 12 months, but now you say you can. Okay, we'll extend this loan for you another 12 months. Okay, you didn't pay me this last 2 years. We're going to extend it one more time because we don't want to own up for the property. And sometimes they're just getting their heart broken because they're idiots out there. Well, we know that their problem is they got their head shoved in an orifice so high up, they're not really making sense. You would think that bankers learned from what they did 15 years ago, what happened. Well, that's not the case. All those folks that went through the Great Recession, the Big Short, retire, get their golden parachutes, and a new class of people came aboard and started creating new terms for the same old products in a lot of cases out there. And you know what? We see a lot of opportunity. There's some things like, why did the bank make this loan? Why did they do this? It just didn't make sense. Well, let's take this and make it something that makes sense. And most importantly, how do we create win-wins for us as investors? We do a lot of great things for investors. I don't know about you guys, but when I got started as a real estate investor, I often felt like I was running on a hamster wheel, running in place, doing the same things over and over again. Well, that's not the case. You know, what's so awesome about note investing is there's not nearly as much competition as there is in the fix and flip, the foreclosure, the multifamily side, a lot smaller niche, but we see a lot of product. It's one of the great things I like. Now, we see awesome deals. We don't do skinny deals. If you're doing a skinny deal, you're overpaying for it. And I'm going to be the first one to tell you, don't do it. Just go market a little bit more. You'll get more deals coming to you. All right. Very little overhead. Yes, it does cost for servicing and attorney fees, but you don't need to have an office. You don't have to have a huge crew or rehab aspect of things. No, if you've got a laptop, cell phone, and good internet, you can do this business from just about anywhere. As I mentioned on the beginning, I have students all across the globe, from New Zealand to Israel to Spain to London, Canada, Mexico, all across the country, all across the world doing deals through the United States, looking at the same things that we are and making things happen. And like I said, you can do closed, commercial, residential, commercial deals, doing a lot of the same things, and do this all across the country, not limited by your zip code or your backyard in a lot of cases, okay? And yes, you can do that with none of your own money. No, you don't have a huge amount. A lot of our students get started $25,000, $50,000 to pick up their first 1 or 2 notes. If they're not buying a house, maybe it's a dog house in California or other expensive place like that, but they're buying a nice house like that one in Michigan, like one in Ohio, St. Louis, South Carolina. A lot of great markets out there where the value makes a whole lot more bigger bang for your buck than going from there. We often find that people that get into real estate investing, they start off just like a new puppy. They're so excited, just smiling. They're telling everybody, I'm an investor. Woo! I took a class. I'm excited. And you talk to them about 6 months or a year later, they want to kill somebody. They're taking all these classes. They're starting to look at them. Their wife is nagging at them or their husband's nagging at them because they spent this money and they haven't pulled the trigger because they're like, oh my God, I'm getting outbid or I'm not doing the right thing. Spend all this money out with nothing coming in and I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Well, that's what attracted me so much to the note business, because I was here in Austin, Texas, and I was getting outbid, and it was a very competitive market. If I had just been buying in Austin, Texas, I'd have gone bankrupt a long time. But the fact is that I'm able to identify deals all across the country and not have to do all the, not have to be there to do it. Makes me really, really happy. Because one of the great things when you're starting off, you may not know what the hell you're doing. Let's admit it. You need somebody to kind of guide your hand or walk you through. That's what we do. We show you how to go find those upside down houses where they owe more than the property's worth. We show you how to pull values or get a realtor there locally to help you out and make sure that they're getting paid too. We show you how to service the loan or who to talk with the borrowers or look at the collateral files. We'll help you with the heavy lifting of setting up payment plans and showing you, okay, here's what you need to say to your servicer, or let your servicer do this and then report back with what the borrowers can afford and then go from there. If you need an attorney, we've got plenty of attorneys all across the country. We can help you with the foreclosure process and the legal side. We help you find IRA investors all across the country by doing some searches. And if an act of God takes place, fire, hurricane, winter storm, that's okay. You're protected because you're insured on there. You're paying the insurance or the borrower's paying the insurance so that the bank gets paid. So that most investors, instead of being stressed out, they're like, why the hell didn't I do this sooner? All right. And so that's one of the biggest things, ladies and gentlemen, is we have worked with so many investors out there over the last 15 years and are constantly buying. And we know how to guide them along the path because we're doing this on a day in, day out basis. All right. And we're so proud of our students all across the country. They're just closing on deals. And that's one of the biggest things I'm so happy about is the number of students that we have that are closing, not just one, not just 2 deals, but closing on a variety of deals so that I can stand here and say today that our students are literally closing thousands of deals, most of it with other people's money. Some are using their own funds, but most of them are closing deals. You know, like Wayne still up here's closed 300 plus. I think he's under 400. I just could go on here. Daryl here, retired realtor from Sacramento, closed on over 20 out there. There's so many on here. We got this. Howard Marcall from the Dominican Republic came to the United States, closed on over a dozen. Jay Tenenbaum down here closed on close to 400 deals. Everybody else in here has closed on at least a dozen or so deals for their portfolio by understanding and taking what we teach on a regular basis and applying it to their marketing. And it's a pretty, I don't want to say it's done for you, but we show you that so much that a dummy can do it. And that's why we call our workshop that we teach basically once a quarter, our virtual note buying workshop, or note buying for dummies. All right. And got a special offer here tonight for you guys. It's a really intense workshop. Actually, our next one is coming up this Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday. So what's involved with it? July 22nd to the 24th. It's a 3-day workshop via Zoom. So you can do it from the comfort of your own home and AC. You ain't got to jump on a plane, fly across the border, fly anywhere. You can do this from the comfort of your home, just like we're doing tonight. It's 3 days of live content, myself speaking, and I have 3 or 4 vendors coming on to share. Like we have a servicing company, an IRA company. We have an asset protection company talk about what you need to have in place as an investor. Like I said, it's all via Zoom. It is recorded, so you'll be able to tap into. If you can't make it, you can catch the replays, or if you got to step out for an hour or two, don't worry, you didn't miss anything. We've got an amazing online network. We've got a private Facebook group for you to network with over 1,000 other investors that are out there looking for deals. We'll actually provide scripts and forms. It's a 200+ page manual with contracts and sample scripts and what to say on LinkedIn, what to say via an email, what to mail out to the IRA investors. As I said, the replays are included, so you don't have to worry about trying to make it all. It's normally $9.97, and that includes you bring in a spouse or partner. Is somebody on that's in your business or an investor you want to work with? Hey, they're included with it as well. But we've been running a special here for you. It's basically 50% off at $498. And that includes all the bonuses here. It also includes something I'm going to throw in there that we don't always do. But I don't know about you guys, but I like taking workshops, but I would always wish I had somebody to hold my hand after the class. I don't want to pay huge costs for somebody to coach me for the first months. I want a couple of weeks to see if I can get things rock and rolling. And we're throwing in a 4-week implementation class that's live every Wednesday or Thursday night for those that take the class that will help you. Okay, this week you need to do this. This week you need to do this. This week you need to do this. And then this week you need to do this. Then you should be off rocking and rolling there. So we're really passionate about helping folks find deals because why? Hopefully you'll call me up and I can buy more deals and help you close on more deals. Okay. But now if you're curious about what's all included, like I said, we'll talk to you how to evaluate deals, how to do diligence. Friday is all about finding deals. Saturday is all about funding and marketing. And then Sunday is all about the exit strategies and business models, how to set this up and do diligence and how to make your offer and how to structure your deals with other people's money. Because there's moving parts like with any asset class, but we really believe, it's not what we believe, we know it because we look at the success of those students, all those photos of the students. They've all taken our virtual workshop and applied it to their business. So that's either the only asset class they chase or one of 2 asset classes that they invest in. So, but I got a special deal for you. Abe is such a good friend and I love what he's doing. And we've got a full class rate, so we've got a few seats left. So I want to just make it a no-brainer offer for you. If you go to notebuyingfordummies.com, click on it, hit the RSVP button. This will take you to a checkout screen. It'll say $498. But if you type in the upper right-hand corner, type in the word Dave, all in caps, it'll drop it down to $197. That's 80% off of our normal price. And I'll make you one better deal. If it's not the best note class you've ever taken, I'll refund your money back, no questions after. If you sit through the first day with me and realize this is crap, Scott doesn't know what the hell what he's teaching, I will gladly refund you and let you walk your way. No questions asked. 100% money back guarantee on that because we know that we deliver the best content in the industry. We're constantly buying deals and we are always tweaking the class every quarter for what's going on the market. And so very easy, guys. If you go to notebuyingfordummies.com, you'll see a green button, hit the RSVP. It'll take you to a checkout screen. It'll say $498. Just go up in the top right-hand corner and type in Dave, D-A-V-E, and apply, and it should drop that price down to $197 for you. And so I wanted to open it up at this time. If you guys have any questions, thank you, Dave, for putting that in the chat room for everybody. Oh, we need to put that for everybody so they can see that. So
yeah, I don't think I can. That was the only option I had.
I will take care of it. Very easy.
There you go, man.
There we go. So
awesome. There you go. Good stuff, Scott. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great presentation. All right, you guys, if you have any questions for Scott, Now's the time. You can type them in the chat box or you can type them in the Q&A and we'll get them going.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody messaged me, I can see here on Facebook. Well, how do we get our guest involved? Well, just let me know who your guest, if you have a different email you're using, and we'll gladly send them the link, the Zoom link that they'll need to attend, along with the class, the replays, a copy of our book, and some other bonuses that we'll throw in there, plus the 4 weeks of coaching. You don't have to be in the same household if you've got a business partner there for you. We know, I mean, it's usually you're sharing blood, a bed, but in this case, if you're sharing an LLC, that'll work as well.
All right, very good. So just a couple of questions here, Scott, while we got some questions coming in. So for your clients that are doing this from outside of the US of A,
yep,
are there any special considerations they have to take into account? So for example, the guy that was doing this from the Dominican Republic, or people that are doing this from Canada, are they setting up LLCs in the States to do this and all that kind of good stuff? And if so, are you able to help them, point them in the right direction for that kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah. We've got either Aaron Young, the CEO of Laughlin Associates out of Nevada, who helped us set up our LLCs and talk about asset protection. He works with just about 95% of our clients. Their company has been around for 50 years. Very knowledgeable in working with Canadian investors here in the United States, not just for notes, but real estate as a whole. So yeah, we've got that covered for you. And I know that either he's speaking or Brent Biscay, who's his VP of operations, will be talking. And they've 30 years of experience of working with investors of all types. And yes, they work with so many Canadian investors here in the United States too. So yeah, setting up LLC is usually the easiest way for most folks anyway, even here in the United States. But yeah, we walk you through that process because most of the time, banks are not going to sell a note to Dave Dubow. They're going to sell it to your LLC. You don't want to buy a note in your own name. You want to put in an entity, your IRA, a trust of some sort if you want to do it. But for folks that are from north of the border, an LLC is going to be the best thing to set up for you.
All right, very good. Thanks for that. It looks very, very attractive, very appealing. Why is it that there aren't more people doing this, Scott? What are your thoughts on that? That's
a very easy question. People, first and foremost, I think we can say that real estate has had a boom over the last few years because of HGTV. Everybody thinks they're going to be a flipper, flip this house, flip or flop, or, Las Vegas foreclosure, whatever, you know what I mean? Dean Grazio's, a wholesale, whatever like that. There hasn't been anybody that's really gone out there and talked about the note business, but the note business has been around since you've had your first mortgage, first IOU. Okay. Think about this. You had The Big Short, maybe anybody a baseball fan here, Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams. That's actually a story about a guy losing his house and the bank buying the note. Okay. His brother and investors bought the debt from the bank and were foreclosing on him. You know what I mean? Till his brother saw, the ghosts in the outfield, stuff like that. But that's what I'm saying is most people don't know about it. I've actually been approached multiple times for a reality show. And I said, no, because the last thing I want is to go out there and our office being bombarded with thousands of people say, hey, can you buy my note from Chase? Can you buy my note from Citibank? It's a different thing. People get really excited about the idea. I want to say about going out and picking up paint and carpet. I can remember when I was a new investor buying our first rental property, we were all excited about that. About 6 months later, I was like, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to be this. But this is what's so great. You want to be a lien lord, not a landlord.
I like that. Lien lord. Yeah, perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. We got a question coming in from Terrence. He says, what do you use to analyze the notes?
Great question, Terrence. So when you are reaching out to these asset managers at banks, you're going to get a spreadsheet sent to you. We call it a tape. Okay. And it's going to be like 40 different cells of everything that's going on with that note. The value, what they owe, their mortgage payment, interest rate, credit score of the borrower, the last 12 or 24 months of payments. Now, you're always going to ask the bank, hey, what do you want for this? It's the number one question. What are you looking to get for it? And the number they give you, if it makes sense for, let's say your strategy is you want to get the borrower back on track. Well, then you got to take a look at what their monthly payment is, multiply it times 12 and divide that by what you pay for the note to see if that ROI fits. If it doesn't, then you're looking at values. You're going to look at what's owed taxes. And then you're going to run some formulas initially to make an offer, to come back and a number makes sense. And the beautiful thing is, like, if I showed you those two maps of, were just a fraction of 1,000 assets that we got in from a bank. So we got it, this tape. I got rid of the states I don't want to buy in. It took less than a minute. I ran some formulas in there for those that were occupied or not paying. And I sent in offers on 100 assets initially in like, I'm not joking, 30 minutes. Because if I had the values in there, I'm not going to spend a lot of time pulling values on the front end until I know what the bank wants or if we kind of get close to it. So they came back and accepted 60 of my offers. We went into due diligence period. During that 30 days of due diligence, I kicked 30 more assets out because the values came in a lot less, or the collateral, like the loan documents, didn't match up properly, or there was another issue that maybe the bank couldn't find the loan file. So I kicked that out. So the beautiful thing is you're going to run some formulas. You're going to do due diligence on like I said, on the property, the borrower, and see what they can pay and how responsive they've been. And then also looking at the collateral and title. We've bought assets where there's this huge judgment sitting on that we couldn't wipe out. Or we bought a note and then we couldn't do a deed in lieu because there was a second mortgage in place. We'd have to go to the foreclosure route. So there's a lot of moving parts, but usually you're going to want to look at it. If it's occupied, it's one way. If it's vacant, it's another way. If it's upside down, we're going to give you some formulas where it means they owe more. If they've got equity, you're going to pay it a little bit more because there's equity in there. But we walk through all of that. I literally will break down a tape live on Sunday afternoon, going through about 100 to 200 assets. So you can see me step by step go through it and see why I took this asset off or why I ran these numbers to share it with you. So, and then the great thing too is with our follow-up too, it's our students are looking at deals. We're always available for them to reach out, schedule time on my calendar, and let's look at a deal that you're working on. Let's hold your hand through making an offer and go from there.
Awesome. Very good. Awesome. Okay. That answered that question. Good stuff.
Yeah. Now there are some websites, some of the things that we'll talk about on Saturday. We'll actually share some websites that you can actually start looking at notes right now. There's some trading platforms that I'll have a couple hundred assets on there. We'll actually pull some lists off of there, show you how to make an offer on some of those. We'll show you how to identify banks that have distressed debt too, so you know how to reach out to them. And there's a couple great things, not just LinkedIn and the Buyer Financialist, but a couple other great websites that are free for you to tap into to use to find the right contacts out there. So it's just a matter of you marketing on a regular basis, reaching out. You don't have to make 50 phone calls or dial 100 phone calls. A lot of our folks that are working full-time in their career, they can't call asset managers. So what they do is we show them how, word for word, what to say in a LinkedIn invite or LinkedIn connection online anytime. And then we show you how to automate your marketing to them afterwards through your email marketing, and then also through social media marketing on automation too for you.
Excellent. Very good.
Cool.
All right, you guys, any other questions before Scott wraps it up?
Let me see if we got, man, I went through that pretty fast. That was supposed to be a 90-minute presentation.
Man on fire.
I speak fast in Austin, Texas, eh? I am originally a Yankee. I joke, I was born in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, actually, is where all my family's from. So it's kind of funny. I'm from north of Texas, basically. So we got a question here. Old school. So this note is almost the same as doing an owner finance, but the note is bought directly from the bank instead of directly to the seller. So yes, old school, we are buying that debt direct from the banks. We're not originating it. Okay. And we will look at owner finance notes some of the time, but most of the time we're going to buy institutional debt because we'll get deals from them on a regular basis. Whereas if you might buy an owner finance, it might be just from that one borrower or that one seller for one asset. And many times they're not willing to take a big discount on owner finance notes, but with banks, we like to buy in bulk or get bulk deals to take a look at. He asked the question, what's the best way to find notes, foreclosures? No. Best way is to reach out directly to the banks and to contact their special assets, the secondary marketing, using LinkedIn and using the scripts of what we show you what to say. And then also it's important, there are things you do not want to say that will shoot you in the foot as well. So yeah, check it out. Like the class there, notebuyingfordummies.com. Special code Dave will knock it down to $197 for you. Thanks for the questions on their old school.
Good stuff.
So, well, cool, Dave. Well, I want to say once again, thank you so much for sharing this out here to your audience. So honored to be here. Guys and gals, if you're really, really wanting to learn this is a great strategy for you. If you can't make it live, yes, get signed up, take advantage of the discount. You might be able to attend the next class we host if you can't make it live on this one. Wink, wink.
And you get the recordings anyhow, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's usually roughly about 24 hours of video over 3 days. And then we also throw in probably about another 12 hours other training along with it as well. Other things to say, go watch this video. This is a great deal on how we automate some things and other stuff like that. So wealth of knowledge in 3 days.
Definitely.
Guys.
So if you're looking for a crash course on notes, this is definitely the perfect opportunity to do it. And as Scott said, the price is right. If you're not happy for any reason, there's a full money back guarantee. So you really don't have anything to lose. Even if you can't make it there live, you're going to get access to all the recordings. And it sounds like if you ask nicely, you might even get into the next one live if you can't make it to this one. So at least you get to watch the recordings now and then to attend the next one live if you ask nicely.
That's right. Gotta be nice. No ask holes allowed.
There you go. Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I really appreciate it. Everybody, thank you for tuning in live. And for those of you watching the replay, take advantage of this because time is of the essence.
That's right.
All right, guys. Scott. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Dave. Have a great evening, bud. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.